When it comes to the very important things of a Lego set and a Lego Technic set, one set wins the comparison, and that is the... Hey guys, this is JP's LEGO Reviews. Today, I'm going to compare the LEGO Technic Porsche 911 GT3 RS set number 42056, and I'm going to compare it to the LEGO Technic Land Rover Defender set number 42110. And I'm going to compare today the displayability, the realism, the building experience, the value proposition, and the functionality of these two sets. So, let's break it down. When it comes to the displayability of these two LEGO sets, which one is better? Which LEGO set looks better if you were to put it on a shelf? And that goes to the Porsche. The reason why is, firstly, it's a bigger set. Secondly, it pops out more on display and it looks very realistic. And thirdly, it's not super cluttered. The Land Rover Defender either looks a bit too bold or a bit too cluttered when you either remove the stuff on the top off or if you leave it on. And because it looks more cluttered and olive green isn't the best color in general for anything, this is the reason why the Porsche is a more displayable LEGO set. But now, let's move on to the realism of these two sets. Now, when it comes to the realism of these two LEGO sets, which one is more realistic? Well, I'm actually going to give it, well, it depends. Because if you're talking about realism, you're either talking about its correct functionality, which they're both practically on point, and how it looks. And looking at realism, I'm going to give it ever so slightly, and this is a very slight one, to the Porsche. The reason why is because, frankly, with a Land Rover Defender, it looks quite realistic, and it would probably equal the Porsche with the current set off. Well, the current stuff on the roof on. But if you were to take all that roof stuff off, it would look quite a bit unrealistic compared to the actual Land Rover Defender, and it wouldn't look super good to display either. And the Porsche 911 is simply a cleaner looking car. It's a cleaner looking Lego model, that's what it is. It looks cleaner and it's more realistic than the Land Rover Defender. But now, let's move on to the building experience of these two sets. When it comes to the building experience of these two sets, it's quite unusual. And the reason why is because the winner here is the Land Rover Defender. Now, this does sound a bit funny, but I will go through why. The Land Rover Defender simply offers you more to do while you're building it. I'll give you an example with the Porsche. With the Porsche, you're building the engine piston system, you're making the gear shifting system, and also putting the car from neutral to drive or to reverse. And you have steering, but other than that, you're just building a very nice looking, and it is a good looking shell. Meanwhile, with the Land Rover, you are making a piston system that is actually respondent to drive, neutral, and reverse. You're also making a steering system that's accessible both from the top end through the steering wheel. So you have two of the things that the Porsche does, with the piston system and steering, and also the gear shifting system, which is 3. But at the same time, you get a high and low selector, where you can put it into high range and low range, and then from there, you can actually increase the high and low range and kind of configure it to your own settings, which is equal to the Porsche. And you have the winch system. You have a winch system that is not existent on any other Lego car that they've made so far, and it also has a locking system. Plus, to open up the boot of a Land Rover Defender, you also have a smaller steering system to let you open it up to the back as well. And with all these things that you can do with it, it actually makes it a better building experience, simply because you get to build a lot more functions as you're making the car, and you're also paying quite a lot less for it. But now, let's move on to the value proposition of these two sets. Now, when it comes to the value proposition, it's a tie. It's simply a tie. The reason why is because with the Porsche, in Australia, you pay 170 Australian dollars at retail more than the Land Rover Defender. But the thing about that is, it's worth the extra $170. You firstly get a car that's maybe not double the size, that's inaccurate, but it's halfway between the same size and double, whatever that's considered. Basically, you're getting half more car than you are with a Land Rover, which that already actually matches the value. You get a very, very premium building experience. It's a very, very premium, and it's something that really has had a lot of effort put into it, where that's not even done with UCS sets like the Millennium Falcon. And simply, the Porsche looks fantastic on display. It's bigger, and it's also very, very displayable. And overall, for what you're getting, you're paying your money's worth, $170 extra, but at the same time, for $170 less than the Porsche, you're still getting an equally good experience when matching it up with price with a Land Rover Defender. It's still the right size, which is about maybe not half as small, but maybe a third the size. A third the size, where it's still 2/3 of the Porsche. You still have a lot of functions in it as well, and it's a little bit more basic. It's not as premium of an experience as the Porsche, but it's simply, when it comes to value, they both match apples to apples. They're very equal, and that's what's surprising. The value proposition in these two sets is equal because they're both just as good as each other if you were to pay separate prices for them. But now, let's move on to, finally, the functionality of these two sets. Now, when it comes to the functionality of these two sets, or what you can do with them, there's a clear winner, and it's the Land Rover Defender. The reason why is simply, for what you're paying for, well, if you're looking at it as completely the same price, you're still actually getting more functions than the Porsche, which already makes it the winner. But also, you're paying quite a lot less for it, which, for that, with quite a lot more functions, it obviously has more functions. What it does is it has a winch system that locks, so that's technically two functions. It steers. You can select from drive, reverse, and neutral. It has pistons. You can select it from high and low range. You can then adjust the high and low range settings, and then you have the boot unlocking and locking system, which all that included is 8 separate functions. Meanwhile, with the Porsche, you get a steering system, you get pistons, you can shift it from neutral to reverse or to drive, and you can change gears. That's 4 functions, and you're getting a lot more functionality. But also with the Land Rover, you're not just getting more functionality, you get to see a lot more of a functionality as well. Because one of the criticisms that I have with the Porsche is that a lot of its functionality is hidden away. Meanwhile, with the Land Rover, it's there, available for you to see and experience. And that's what I like about the Land Rover Defender. But now, let's move on to my final thoughts on this comparison. Now, which LEGO set here is the overall winner of the comparison? Well, when it comes to the very important things of a LEGO set and a LEGO Technic set, one set wins the comparison, and that is the Land Rover Defender. The reason why the Land Rover Defender wins the comparison is because when you're looking at it as a LEGO Technic set, what do you want? You want different functions, or quote-unquote LEGO Technics. You want techniques on doing different things. And simply, if you want to do the most amount of things with a LEGO set, which you do want to do with a LEGO Technic car build, especially when both of them look, especially comparing the prices to each other, they both look equally displayable, the Land Rover is simply a better set to purchase, simply because you get 8 versus 4 functions. The building experience is more rich because you get to see those functions being implemented into the Land Rover. And as a bonus for Technic fans, if you look in the right places, the functionality or the gear systems in the Land Rover are a lot easier to find than the Porsche. So the Porsche, it's been so well covered that you can't actually see even how the pistons work. Now, that sounds good, but if you want to see or show how the Porsche works, you can't, because it's simply too difficult because of the fact that so many pieces are holding it together, where you're simply just hiding beneath layers of Technic pieces for functionality. Meanwhile, with the Land Rover, it's not immediately visible, But if you know where to look, you can easily find functionality, and that's what makes it a Technic set. Yes, the Porsche has a much more premium unboxing experience. It's a very, very nice experience. But when it comes down to actually being a good Technic set, and even looking good on display, the Land Rover just has more to offer because it's good on display, meanwhile it's excellent in functionality. Meanwhile, the Porsche is excellent in display and it's okay when it comes to functionality. And that's why the Land Rover wins the comparison today. But what are your thoughts on these two Lego sets? Well, let me know down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button. If you want to see more content just like this, please subscribe. I hope you guys have a fantastic day and keep building.